Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. And we've got returning guest Maya.
Hello. Yay.
Hey. And yeah, we talk about relationships. So here we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
This time we're searching what are your questions about relationships, and it actually one of the gifts of Access Consciousness, which is the tools and methods that me and Shauna both use, is question, and question brings you more awareness. And lo and behold, we ourselves got awareness just from asking that question, which was that.
Well, people don't know how to ask a question. And they're like, I used to do this before where I think that I'd be asking a question when I would talk, and that's not asking a question, or there's an assumption that or a conclusion or this judgment, and it's trying to turn that into a question. So we can go through these things, and then we'll actually I mean, it's totally fine to even go through these questions and try and like facilitate through it, because um at least you're trying to ask a question rather than just saying abuse.
Discuss.
Discuss.
Abuse, discuss. But
Dis-
yeah, let's go with the energy. And if we don't manage to answer this, then we'll definitely record another one.
yeah. So one person asked, how do I deal with men's bullshit?
Okay, this is a great example because what we're doing with Access, and also I was thinking about it because if you used to like ask a question in the like call into a radio show or send in your question, you're really looking for an answer and a result. And the kind of amazing and frustrating thing about Access Consciousness is that we're bringing people to the awareness of what they know, and B, really educating people of how much question create possibility. So if I would take something like this, and again, we don't do it from judgment at all, like me and Shauna definitely meet our conclusions all the time. But if I would have a question like this, I would break it down to see, okay, what conclusions do I already have wrapped into this that are in a form of a question?
Mhm. Yeah, because it's like, okay, so the dealing with men's bullshit, it's kind of like, how many conclusions do you have that there's men are just constantly like, there's the bullshit part, like, okay, dealing with men's bullshit. So what is that? And then I get it, like there's a lot of crazy things on a dating site with men and women. And then dealing with it, okay, so well, who says you
Well,
have
like
to?
how many judgments do you have with regards to men?
There you
Even
go.
if you just start there, it's like, whoa. And, kind of like you said, are there no women out there who create bullshit? Like, just to open you up to see where you're looking only from this very narrow lens of reality. And when we're looking through a very narrow lens of reality, we are not in question. Again, not wrong, just the more we educate ourselves about where we're functioning from, the more things just open up and change for us in a very different manner than like, okay, this is a problem. So in order to solve a problem, this is the answer that I'm going to take. So like, let's say we would go on the route of answering this as per se, we would be judging men or telling you like, men are bullshit, like, going with that same line and
Yeah.
creating more of that conclusion versus like, is that true? Is that true with regards to all men? Is that like just opening up to like what is actually true here, which also usually that's kind of like how we get to those bottom layers of, okay, so what is my question really?
Mhm. And then it's like in each moment, because like this could be in regards to like, if you're putting yourself out there and you're dealing with a lot of people in abundance, it could be like as soon as something comes up really quickly, you'd be like, okay, what is this? And then you get that awareness. And this is a very fast question. Okay, what is this? And then like look for that awareness. And then the interesting point of view is a tool. So as soon as you have a point of view come up, like as soon as like, let's just say someone, man or woman, comes into your realm trying to date you, but then all of a sudden throws something at you, it's like, oh, interesting point of view. Because if they're throwing a point of view at you and you're throwing a point of view at them, it's like you could break that down by being like, oh, interesting point of view, and say it a couple times, like they have this point of view, I have this point of view, and it literally changes the energy. Okay, so the person again asked another question saying, how come people continue relationships knowing the person isn't there forever and that person is toxic?
Cool. So again, I would kind of look at that if, and it's like, it might take a bit of investigation and exploration for yourself, which is where all these tools come together. Like if I mean, on one hand, I just take a tool of Access and kind of run with it. But the more we use all of them together, the easier it gets, just in the sense of like, A, this may take time. B, like just being kind to myself in the process. Like, okay, maybe I discover that actually I find myself going out again and again and again with toxic people. But that means that underneath that, behind that, there is a belief, we'll call it for this purposes, is that all relationships are toxic, or all men are, like, it doesn't matter, it can be all women are toxic. Like, what is your underlying belief there, presumptive reality there, or whatever you want to call it, that keeps you meeting these relationships? So in a way, we start, instead of like reacting to what's coming at us, which would be me reacting to a toxic relationship, to, okay, wait, I'm the one choosing and creating this again and again, so what's going on here? Like, and if I'm willing to have that curiosity of like really investigating that without a judgment, without like being hard on myself, without, you know.
And then like there's a couple things coming up because if we as a third person, if we see this happening, like let's just say our friend keeps doing that, or that's an observation, it's the allowance piece could be you're aware of it, you're an allowance of people making their choices, and you don't have to choose that. And then with the trait of, let's just say, toxicity or negativity, bullshit, abuse, all that stuff, it's like, so look at the people who have those traits and then get the sense of someone being that. And then, like, how does that, what is the sensation or energy of that? And then that's where you get to choose and be aware of that with the energy of what people are choosing. And then the allowance piece is you don't have to choose that. That's another thing. Like people might not realize that they don't have to choose that.
And even that can be quite a journey. Like if that's your like basic assumption in life, it might take a while till you realize that that's actually a choice that's available to you. Like really. And I heard some facilitator or someone asked something in the lines of like, if a stranger would treat you like that, would you be okay with that? Like, where do we allow the people closest to us to be that? But if a stranger would treat you like that, that would be like unacceptable. So again, and
For
that's kind of a
sure.
question just to kind of open this door for you to see that that doesn't have to be the only reality available. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just a choice.
Yeah. Okay, so a different person asked, how about co-parenting with a narcissist? And then why is it 1 out of 6 people are narcissists?
One of the greatest things that I received in regards with parenting is this annoying awareness that our kids chose us, which means they also chose the narcissist parent for that matter. Like if you're a couple with, you know, a complicated dynamic and there's one parent who's more kind or whatever that looks like, the kid chose that and they knew what they were choosing. And the more we trust our kids that they knew what they were choosing, the easier it might be for us. Like if we're willing to actually look at that and see if that's true for us and go from there. It's like, so if I do have that knowing that my kid chose this person as their a parent, what can that add to my day-to-day actions, reactions, like what I think that I need to protect them from or not protect them from? Like the more we learn to take it apart and see where our kids' choice is in all of this, the easier it might get if you go on the journey.
And that's pretty cool. And like, and if maybe the person isn't with their narcissist
Partner.
partner, then it's kind of like, in a sense, if the kid chose the parents, and also this means like, if like you who are listening, you chose your parents too. So take a look at that dynamic where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, look at my parents, and then look at how you created your life. Like maybe you were able to make life work for you, or maybe you chose it in a way where things worked out. But take a look at that dynamic, and then so and then
And
if yeah.
just one more piece, that it's also like when we talk about allowance or when we talk about that patience, it also doesn't mean that we don't sometimes say, okay, this is not okay for me. This person is not seeing my kids. Like, we, the point of being more conscious and more aware doesn't mean we receive everything into our lives. It makes us actually kinder to ourselves. And if there are situations that do not work for us, we choose them. We choose to say, like, okay, if this doesn't change, you're not going to see your kids for a while, like, but
Yeah.
it just comes from a different space. It's not from that reactionary reality that creates more and more fight all the time.
Yeah, it's the awareness. And I'm really like, I'm always impressed when people leave the very abusive partner, because I also know that there are people who stay with their abusive partners for the rest of their lives. And then all these things happen, and I'm observing that. But then I see people who like are like, yep, I left. And I'm like, what? And then just a quick thing about like with the kid choosing their parents, like if you're not with your partner, then there's that awareness that maybe it works where the kid did only wanted to stay with the mother and didn't want to stay with the father, but then you may have to deal with the father for the 18 years that your kid's growing up. So there's just that. um I mean, okay, is there anything else on that?
Well, what was this? You were about to read the second part again, I think.
So there's I mean, there was the topic of abuse that came up. I kind of touched on that. And then the next thing was the poll that we had put in.
No, like that specific question. It
Oh,
was
the
it was kind of
um so like with the narcissist, it was just about the kid having the more choice. That's all I was going to say with like the kid. Um
okay.
Maybe if like whatever parent's not in the picture, the kid might work for the kid, where it's like, oh yeah, I just want to stay with my mom.
Yeah.
But then and then you might have to the mother might have to deal with the father, like, still, and that's just that dynamic. And that's all, I think that's all I was going to say. Well, we have comments that came in.
Yeah.
So no one knows how to be in a relationship.
Perfect example. Is that a question?
Right? Lots of conclusions.
And again, it's like, okay, if I notice that I have that thought, belief, point of view, am I willing to start expanding that into a question? Do I want to choose to see something different? Or maybe that's like, okay, that's my truth. That's all I want to see. That's all I want to have in the world. Again, it's a very kind of personal journey that you go on, because like if you do want to see that there are other possibilities, like, and you start asking questions about that, you become amazed of what shows up. Like suddenly you do see suddenly this amazing co-creation that people have together, that you're like, wow, I didn't know that's possible in the world. So already that shows you that the world is not that black and white. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so not all relationships are like that. Maybe I've seen most relationship like that. Cool. What else is possible? What can I create that nobody else can? Like, again, if we choose, we go from our conclusion, our point of view, to question. So
Mhm.
What can I choose that is different? Okay, so even if I saw this mostly as my reality, does that mean that nothing else exists? Is that true? Like, really just going into that investigative state of like willing to question your beliefs in order to have a better quality of living.
Mhm. Yeah. Another comment was, so it's more questions on Aries, like the horoscope. They suck.
Yay. I think you guys might know where we'll go with this one. But it's very similar to the men are bullshit situation. Like,
There's like,
and the brilliance of our points of view is that then we'll create it. Like, we'll make more and more people who are Aries sign show up in our life who are like assholes or something like that. Like, that's how brilliant we are with creations. It kind of like, when you have the white Toyota and that's all you see, it's
Mhm.
the same thing that we can create with personalities, points of view, people showing up in our life. Like,
Yeah.
and the great thing, it's really funny because it takes us a long time, or maybe for some of us, a very short time to go from like, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And I think me and Shauna are at the point where we can laugh at ourselves. So we're not free. We have a lot of places where we're right, but at this point we can laugh about the places where we're like, okay, all the Aries are assholes, or I don't know what the word was that you use, but it's like,
They suck. Aries suck.
but we show ourselves how we prove our points of view to ourselves and make that show up in our life, kind of thing. You see, I was right. Like, another Aries showed up in my life and he sucks.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. Well, and then the whole like allowance piece is also again like, if someone is just being a certain way, first of all, you have the awareness of what they're going to be. And I think a lot of people try to go into changing it, especially with like the narcissist, the abuse, the men or women, because there's a lot of like weird, interesting dynamics between whether the person is a man or a woman. It's like, whoa, there's so much energy there. And it's like allowance could be interesting point of view. So the tool interesting point of view is like, oh, so like let's just say you're like Aries suck. And you could take that and be like, hey, interesting point of view. I have that point of view. Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. You say it a couple times because it literally takes that energy and clears it for you. And then it's like you have a bit more possibility and space. But I guess we're asking people to really change their points of views here. Like it's maybe impossible.
Yep.
Okay, so and then there's a couple more questions. Someone said, what's actually important for long-term compatibility?
Even long-term compatibility, like how many already judgment and conclusions do you have that you require compatibility, that you require long-term? Like, it's
Mhm.
already so many set beliefs in that. And
Yeah.
so it already gives you a very narrow, specific path that you're looking at, which is not everything that's possible for you to show up in your life. And one of my favorite stories, and we have like, we remember these extreme stories just to kind of ping us when we're going that direction in life, and it doesn't necessarily have to look like it's extreme, that extreme. But Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, he tells a story when he was young. There was this super uber rich woman who was very interested in him, and he had a point of view that he doesn't date married women, and he doesn't want to date married women, and it's immoral to date married women, etc., etc. So he leaves to Europe. He finds out that the husband had cancer and died, and she had millions and millions, and she ended up finding a partner that looked almost exactly like Gary. So she ended up creating it anyways, and this guy ended up with however many millions that was. And all that is from one point of view, like of I do not do that. And again, it's not wrong to hold on to points of view. It's just this like a very cool story that demonstrates what happens when you have this certain narrow point of view that you're like, okay, I can only choose this. And then reality kind of slaps you in the face of like, I wonder if you would be more open-minded, what could show up for you. So just in the sense of like compatibility, what is that? What is that for you? What have you decided that will solve? What have you decided that's the only way? Like maybe that's eliminating people that you would call opposites that would actually work way better for you. Like just again, and it's not that it means that you don't end up choosing the compatible person, whatever you define that as, but you're just open for more. Like when we have that narrow view, we're just making our life more narrow. That's like, and we don't realize it until we realize it.
I found what's cool with that story you just shared. It's like the narrow point of view, the conclusion really blocks us from asking a question, but perceiving the energy. Like if you were like asking for money to show up and then all of this starts showing up, but you're like judging what shows up, you're not able to even sense the energy and follow it because the point of view has kept you locked into that jail. Um, so in regards to that, yep.
No, just like I was thinking about another example that I always have, like, because a lot of women, we do this, like, I don't need help. I can do everything by myself. And one facilitator talks about that moment where she had her heavy suitcase in the cabin in the plane and a man wanted to help her. And she was like, I don't need your help. And just having all those examples float in your reality just to see where you're not receiving kind of thing. But why am I saying this? Because we were talking before about all the men are bastards or something like that. And like if I have that point of view and the really kind man shows up that wants to lower the suitcase for me, I can't receive that. So again, just more examples to see, okay, where am I narrowing my view only for this to show up?
Well, it's really interesting when people do show up to like carry that or help or something because and I've noticed in my life, it happens so quickly that I'm like, oh, I'm okay, I'm good. And then I have to pause for a moment and I was like, wait a second, that person just could have helped me with this. So with that question was, does it change with age? So like what's actually important for long-term compatibility and does that change with age?
Like there's almost a lot of like I'm trying to sort out how the relationship is going to work throughout my whole life before I even, kind of like when people talk about I'll wait till all the lights will be green before I'll start my car kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you doing that instead of going on the curious journey that might be messy, that you might fall and you might stumble, but like otherwise you're not living. You're like just sitting in your car waiting to turn on the engine and you never do that because you don't have all the steps sorted out for you yet.
Well, and like age is a whole thing too. And it's like, yeah, I mean, think of how many things change when you wake up with every second and you are the change agent for your life. So it's like, what if age didn't really matter? And then, okay, can you give me examples of successful dating strategies for women who are over dating and ready to find the love of their life?
Again, it's really annoying, and we're going to go back to question. And one of the most annoying questions that actually I think we did mention at least once with our conversations, but a lot of times when that shows up for people, the one thing access facilitators will ask is truth. Do you really desire a relationship? And
Mhm,
it's such a difficult thing because you're like, but I'm doing everything, but I'm
mhm.
like everything is showing that I am trying to go to that direction, but until we investigate our points of view, a lot of times we'll just keep running into those same walls, and you can change it. It doesn't mean you can't change it. Like people feel like that if they admit that they don't want a relationship, somehow that, I don't know, that will end. That's like the worst thing to do, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that could be, I mean, it took me a long time to realize that, like, to get, okay, it's a huge thing because the whole, like, wanting a relationship versus actually realizing that you don't want a relationship and then seeing everything for what it is kind of like, oh, well, so with this, it's like, can you give me examples of successful dating strategies for women who are over dating and ready to find the love of their life? It's kind of like, if you're living moment by moment, you might be able to acknowledge what you have in regards to the people in your life and the life that you're creating. And when you say, like you said, like if you are always in wanting a relationship mode and but you're not in it, to actually say, oh, I don't want a relationship, it just changes the energy. You don't have to be scared.
And it's bizarre because it's like it's such a shortcut to actually use the questions and tools of access, and it seems like not a non-possibility in some way.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because again, we are very committed to our truths, our beliefs, our the things that we grew up with, and I'm keep saying that because it's not wrong. It's this, that's the process that we go through. We're like, okay, if I want more awareness and I want to live not on my automatic pilot, I have to go on some exploration of what I am creating up until now and start asking questions in order to change it.
Hmm. Yeah. So we've got one, two, so I think two more. Wait. So I think it's like one or two more questions. So where are the spiritual men in the dating pool who aren't up to spiritual scumbaggery? Well, have you watched never mind. I'm not even gonna like reference the movie. What is it called? Wild Wild Country. That's crazy. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's like, oh dear, don't have an answer. And interest like
I would
to
just start investigating. So what
yeah.
am I looking for in a spiritual man? What have I decided a spiritual man is? What are the qualities that I'm looking for that a spiritual or a non-spiritual man might have? Like just really, really just making notes, like really looking at, okay, what do I actually desire here? Like narrow it down to something more clear for you. And it could be just then you find out like why these men keep showing up that might have qualities that have to do with spirituality and might have nothing to do with spirituality. Like,
Or like looking, there's always that like looking for the healer, but then you are the healer, but then there's that whole like switcheroo and like the whole like merry-go-round. So there's that. Um,
and actually, we could probably talk more a lot about that question. So let's,
mhm. Yeah,
but maybe next time. Like we're kind of doing a
yeah, it's
a
kind of
run through, but something like this can be something that you might be investigating for like 5 hours. Like
oh
just
yeah.
to say, I wouldn't want to belittle any of the questions, kind of thing. You know,
Hmm.
we are trying to emphasize how much more question and investigation is required with each and any of these elements, and give a few tools with that we did mention along the way. But yeah, just know that this obviously is just the start.
Well, and a real quick thing for that is for yeah, your point of view creates your reality. But if you get a sensation where you're like, oh, not gonna go there, then like follow your awareness and just don't go there. Like if you're like, oh, I don't think like if someone asks you out on a date and you're like, I just don't feel like it's a good idea, it doesn't feel right, it gives you like a weird icky feeling, then maybe just like go on a date another day or just like be like, no, I'm just gonna like follow this energy and be like, if it's just your awareness kind of like hitting you, then follow your awareness. Okay. Well, and we did do a run through, so if you want, we could also run through the polls, but the poll was kind of like topics. So the top topics that people voted for were conflict resolution, intimacy, and finances.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, and like we didn't get like any questions, but we could also over time, like if people have questions, send them in, and or you know, for the next time we could just, you know, pick a topic, chat about it.
We will.
Because
And
they're
let's
like,
get more questions.
I'm pretty sure
We're
we'll,
really happy to, yeah, really explore anything even deeper and to more nuances with any of you.
yeah, for sure. Okay, well, yeah, I hope this helped. Like it's always fun if you have more questions again, like send them in. Yeah, and even if it's kind of like even if you still have the questions that are coming up for you in this and it doesn't seem to make sense, don't be afraid to just say, hey, like what is this? Because we can definitely expand on it and talk about it.
Cool. Thanks, Shona.
Yeah, thanks, Maya. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you guys again later. Bye.
Bye bye.